Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis, and we have got a great show for you today because not only are we going to talk about wildfire mitigation, but we are going to walk the walk, actually touring several mitigation sites around the Helena area and speak with the boots on the ground, men and women who are working so hard to manage our public lands so close to the capital city. But before we get to that, it's a foraging favorite and has a very unique relationship with fire. I'm talking about the Morel mushroom. People love to eat them, people love to hunt for them, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be pretty dangerous. So we'll talk Morel mushroom hunting safety to kick things off today.
I'm here in Big Timber at a local spot for foraging Morel mushrooms, which, according to a release by the FDA in May, you should only eat at your own risk.
Don't eat wild mushrooms unless you're 110% sure you know exactly what they are.
Carson Paulington has been foraging Morel mushrooms for about 8 years.
I had some good friends that got into it, and I came along one day and it turned out to be a lot of fun.
And you can see how it's hollow on the inside. And you want it to, they have to be hollow. If they're not hollow, it's not a Morel.
Paulington says you should always be aware of what your Morel looks like to know whether it's safe to eat.
Shouldn't have any holes in them. They have that kind of corally, spongy shape to the top of them. And if that's intact, that's good. And if it's like soft and squishy, it's not good.
In May, the FDA released a Morel mushroom investigation of illness and provided general safety tips about the mushrooms, stating there are varieties of false Morels that may be mistaken for a true Morel due to a similar appearance. False Morels are toxic and should not be consumed, cooked, or uncooked. If you are foraging for wild mushrooms, it is important to consult with a knowledgeable expert to properly identify species that are safe for consumption. Retired plant pathology professor from MSU, Jack Rieselman, knows what to look for to avoid false Morels.
There is another fungus or mushroom that's very closely related to the Morel called the false Morel, or Helivella is another name for it. That one is semi-toxic, so it looks a lot like a golden mushroom.
He recommends you only try a little bit of Morel for your first time and avoid alcohol in case of a reaction.
There are some folks who are sensitive, and especially if you enjoy a glass of wine or a cold beer with your Morel. That has a tendency to release some things in the Morels that some people react to.
Rieselman says Morels are safe to eat. He and Paulington both say if you prepare the mushroom correctly, there shouldn't be anything to worry about.
I've never been concerned because we'll just a really simple, we'll batter them lightly and fry them in butter. And as soon as they're turning golden brown, they're well cooked.
Oh yeah, that's
just
good.
Buttery and savory.
Mm-hmm. And like Paulington, Rieselman has the same warning.
If you don't know what you're eating, don't eat it.
MSU also has a mushroom identification center called the Shutter Diagnostics Lab that you can send a foraged mushroom to and confirm whether it's safe or not to eat. In Bozeman, Kristen Merkel, MTN News.
In this next story, MTN's John Shear will show us where repairs are being made and what still needs to be done to fully bounce back.
Yellowstone National Park still has some sites like this closed campground to reopen, and a lot of repair work still needs to be completed following last June's massive flooding. This video, shot by a park ranger last June, shows the immense power of the floodwaters. You can see a demonstration of that destruction just a short walk off the north entrance road. The pavement drops away, eroded by the force of the water. A new road on a different route now takes its place.
We made the best out of one of the worst possible situations.
Park Superintendent Cam Shawley ticks off the recovery efforts in just the past year. Large parts of the northeast entrance road are now rebuilt, but some is still under construction.
That continues to see erosion from the river down below. We'll be actually, the contractor will be blasting next week to get that road moved in.
But I think they've done a tremendous job of fixing this so people can still come.
We set very aggressive goals last year. If we hadn't gotten them done, we'd still be closed.
This hill right behind me was pushed back so that the road right over here could be moved away from the eroded edge of the river. Now, last fall, this hillside was just covered with heavy equipment doing the work. Now, it's just waiting for the grass to start growing.
The amount of work that's gone on since last, I don't know, July through October, it's just unbelievable.
And then, of course, there's that new road with stunning views connecting Gardner with Mammoth. It's a slow, winding trip, leading some to complain.
Well, for those that don't like it, I guarantee you they like it better than having no road.
And even though there are long waits at construction zones, Chalet says complaints are few.
We'd be glad to do that just for the privilege. It's a lot better than them closing it completely down and we couldn't come this year.
There are construction waits just outside Mammoth on the Gardner River until the end of June. Also on the Yellowstone River Bridge just east of Roosevelt Junction and in the Lamar Canyon. Work is set to finish soon on a sewage treatment system for Mammoth, so the hotel and restaurants there may reopen.
To think about we're doing this only 1 year after the historic flooding events of last year is nothing short of amazing.
Everyone that played a part, and that includes the public who supported us, really should feel good about where we are.
But in spite of all the damage and all the road work just like this, there are some things that survived, like this huge chunk of petrified tree that's laying just a few feet off the road. In all, it will cost nearly $1 billion to repair the damage from last year's flooding. In Yellowstone National Park, John Shearer, MTN News.
All right, here's kind of a no-brainer question. Aren't dogs great? And if you happen to own livestock in grizzly bear country, you know why they're called man's best friend. MTN's Ryan Gamboa has our story.
For thousands of years, the grizzly bear has roamed the plains of north-central Montana, and since the westward expansion, ranchers have had to learn to live with those bears. But man's best friend is proving to be the best management method. Livestock husbandry can get caught at a crossroads when dealing with apex predators.
Our livestock guardian dogs, this is Zia, this is Astra.
Seth Becker is a rancher north of Conrad. We met Seth back in March when he welcomed us to Stickleg Ranch.
They were given to us as part of a grant study from the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
That FWP program has concluded, says bear management specialist Wesley Sarmento with the Conrad branch of FWP.
Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, we initiated a study with Utah State University to see if livestock guard dogs are effective at keeping bears away from homes and farms, particularly farms with a lot of attractants that are hard to secure, like grain spills and livestock feed.
The Beckers use a regenerative farming approach, rotating flocks or herds with new grass each day. Last summer, a bear got into its chickens. It was a horror movie. Carcasses left for dead. Murder for the pleasure of it. From that point on, the stress of grizzly bears grew.
You know, the main thing was our children. We were concerned about with 3 young children that they want to go outside and play, you know. And anyway, these dogs changed everything. They are our security force, and they do a great job at it.
The Beckers own 2 Anatolian Shepherd mixes, a breed that isn't a common household dog. And with that comes stigma.
One of them is that they're dangerous with people, which is not the case at all with the dogs that we've put out. And we put out 5 different dogs. All those dogs that we've put out have been super friendly with people, really good with kids, where little kids will actually ride them and lay in a bed with these dogs. So they're not aggressive with people whatsoever.
In the daytime, these guardians might look like the laziest dogs on the planet. But by night, these images show an aerial map of the track the dogs took around the base camp of Stickleg Ranch before heading on a 17-mile patrol.
Do you see the bear way up there running? The dogs are chasing it over the ridge.
Bravery is in their genetics, and this video taken by Seth's wife Jenny shows Zia and Ashra heading over the ridge after a bear.
They know what it smelled like yesterday, they know what it smells like today, and they know when there's something up.
The dogs do seem to be a highly effective option without a lot of investment in time and money and resources. They don't take a lot of work to keep around the house. They're safe with people, and they're effective at pushing bears away.
If grizzly bears are proven to be a nuisance on your ranch, man's best friend is proving to be a rancher's best security. Along the Rocky Mountain front, Ryan Gamboa, MTN News.
And after taking a look at this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question, those dogs sure have a lot of work ahead of them. Take a look for yourself. Here we go. We're going to keep with the theme of grizzly bears on ranches and look specifically at Lewis and Clark County. According to the Montana Department of Livestock, how many grizzly bear kills of livestock animals happened in the county back in 2022? Remember, this is cattle, sheep, horses, all of it reported to the livestock department in total. Is it A, 64 grizzly bear kills on livestock, B, 78, or C, 34? I told you this one was going to be a head scratcher. Think about the size of our county, think of the livestock here, and how delicious they are, and we'll have your answer when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody. Just before the break, I asked you this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question. And just in case you missed it, here it is one more time. According to the Montana Department of Livestock, how many grizzly kills of livestock happened in Lewis and Clark County back in 2022? Now this is cattle, sheep, horses, all of it total reported to the livestock department. Is it A, 64 grizzly bear kills on livestock, B, 78, or C, 34? All right, drum roll please. If you think 64 grizzly kills sounds right, then you are right. Lion, wolf, and grizz kills of all livestock in Lewis and Clark County last year totaled to 78, according to the Livestock Loss Board. But, according to that same board, grizzlies took down 64 of those animals, 21 cattle, and 43 sheep, according to the data. Now, for more information about grizzly deterrence and livestock loss, check out the Montana Department of Livestock's website. They have a lot of good resources up there. And speaking of resources, protecting arguably our largest resource here in Montana, our forests, sometimes takes a little fire to help fight fire. I recently had the chance to hike in with our Forest Service to see what they're doing to not only protect our woods, but our cities and towns.
Projects like these, reintroducing fire into this ecosystem, is a huge benefit.
At first, that might sound wrong. We're taught to keep fires out of the forest. But with a lot of planning and skilled professionals like Mike Kaiser with the U.S. Forest Service, fire now actually prevents large fires later, especially in an area like this, the old shooting range trailhead just outside of the capital city.
We don't want to keep fire out of the environment because we live in a fire-adapted ecosystem, and we've tried taking fire out of that ecosystem, and we're very successful at that. We're very good at suppression, but we've seen across the West that the repercussions of that are when fire season does hit, and it hits every year, that we get those bigger wildfires that are harder to control because of our past suppression efforts. So in order to adapt to live in a fire-adapted ecosystem like we do around the Helena area and the Northern Rockies, we have to include fire into our way of living.
To put it simply, fires in Montana are a natural occurrence. But us living in cities surrounded by wilderness is not. So the tactics that have been used in the past to prevent fires from spreading has actually promoted overgrowth and deadfall just sitting there, waiting to turn into fuel for the next raging wildfire. So it's Mike and his crew's job to clean that up with prescribed burns. The bases and a lot of the limbs are pretty scorched. I'm guessing that's by design, right?
That is by design. When we come through and we do these understory burns, we want to come through and we want to It's called raising the canopy height. And so what that does is we get those live branches, which during an active wildfire are the carriers into the crowns of the trees. And so if during a prescribed burn, we can kill those lower limbs, but the trees themselves are still healthy. And so in the event of a wildfire coming through here, that fire is going to have a lot harder time coming through and getting into the canopies. So it'll stay on the ground and it'll make suppression much easier.
And with projects like this, so close to private property and the city, planning is everything.
Timeline of what it kind of took to get to this point of actually doing the prescribed fire of Rodney Ridge was there was a lot of the planning process. And then we had to come out and we had to do some thinning and piling, and we had to burn the piles. And then we had to come out and do some more thinning and some more pile burning before this area was ready for the broadcast understory burn that we accomplished last spring. And so in total, that was about a 6-year process to get to this point where we would be successful to burn this area and keep and retain the overstory. So it's a lot of time and effort for an afternoon of prescribed fire, which everybody sees, right?
6 years for one area is just a snapshot of the larger plan for fighting and communication about wildfires. A little farther up on Rodney Ridge, Kendall Wilson and Emily Platt showed me another area treated about a year ago. This is considered a real successful buffer here in the wildland-urban interface. So if a fire does roll through, which it will someday, it's low intensity in this area.
Yeah, it's as we hiked up here today, and as I've been driving around, and you see the grass is waist high and it's green, and we know it's going to be curing out and become an issue. You know, we work really well with our partners and having those meetings and those, you know, pre-planning. One of the things we've done recently is with all the counties and fire departments and DNRC is make kind of pre-planning of the areas that would have a fuel break like this in it and incorporate it. So if we do get a fire start, that gives us an option to, like, you know, we have a fire that we don't want. Where's the safest and safest spot and gives us the highest chance of success, and this would be one of those areas. And so these pods that we've kind of put across the landscape, and it's not just Forest Service ground, it's BLM, it's DNRC, BIA, it's statewide, and it's actually a national effort to have these referenced in a database anyone can access, and you can look at them, and it's not pre-decisional. It's not saying like, oh, if we get a fire, we're going to keep it in this box. It's not. It just gives us an outline of where we're going to go. Right. You know, that's an option. Okay. It just gives us a little bit more information instead of getting a map out on the hood of a truck underneath a column of smoke. Right. We're already planning that. We're already talking to we're all on the same page. Right.
And in other spots across the state that don't look exactly like this, other actions and plans are being put in place to find success.
We've been so lucky here to be able to invest so much with our partners in this particular landscape around Helena, but we have not had quite the opportunity to do that across the forest like we'd like. So some areas like up around Lincoln, we haven't been able to invest in so much of the vegetation treatment, and so one of the things we're doing there is fuel breaks, strategically placed, to give us more options when fires do come through there, so we can keep the fire out of the town of Lincoln and away from people's homes and other things that people value.
Things like Helena's water supply. I caught up with Helena District Ranger Kathy Bushnell in an area of Grizzly Gulch not far from the city that is targeted for upcoming mitigation after deadfall and other fuel buildup have really primed this spot to be a tinderbox. And as Kathy told me, if the areas around our water supply look anything close to this, we could all be in trouble.
The City of Helena water supply, one of them, comes from Red Mountain, and so it is just a gravity feed down the mountain to the holding tank at Chessman Reservoir. And so any fire could move sediment into that, because a lot of places it's an open trough kind of delivery mechanism to the Chessman Reservoir. And so getting sediment, getting material in there just makes it harder, or even stopping the supply if it were to cut off that supply. And so getting all of that to Chessman and then having the city have to do all the cleanup of the water, it just could either take it out completely for a time or for an extended period of time, or make it harder for the city to get clean water.
Protecting that just got a federal boost this past week after the Departments of Interior and Agriculture issued a joint memo outlining goals for managing wildfires this year. Now, according to that memo, the department's aim is to have more than 17,000 wildland firefighters by the end of next year. Right now, there are 14,000 U.S. Forest Service and 5,000 Interior firefighters. Aside from the investment in firefighters, the plan highlights ecosystem restoration efforts, post-fire recovery efforts, and efforts to make communities more fire resilient. Additionally, it calls on Congress to pass legislation to make a temporary firefighter pay increase permanent. All good news for us here in Montana and our forests.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Well, that should just about do it for us here this week at MTN Outdoors. Thanks everybody for spending some time with me. And remember, keep those photos of you enjoying the great outdoors here in Montana coming my way. Just send them to andy.curtis@ktvh.com, and you could see yourself at the end of a future episode just like these folks. It's time for this week's MTN Outdoors Brag Board. This week's video comes to us from John Riley. And I made an exception for him this week because he actually took this video in North Carolina, but he's wearing Carroll College gear, and we also have snakes here in Montana, so those two things added up together counts. Now, we're not sure exactly what kind of snake he's pointing at here, but we do know that it's a little too big to mess with. So John is doing the responsible thing of just pointing at it and sending me the video. Thanks a lot, John. And remember everybody, this weekend being Father's Day weekend means anyone without a fishing license can fish for free. All other fishing rules and regulations still apply though. Please keep that in mind. Thanks again everybody for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you out there.